against Nepo in the World Championships, Caruana. He's faced the toughest players in the world with the black pieces, and they weren't able to beat him. No one has really been able to beat him. We see a London system on the board, Tanya. Bishop f4 and Bishop f5 immediately played. And they're playing the moves quite quickly here. So we just let them play until they slow down. Very standard moves coming in. Magnus just copying White's setup here. And let's remind everyone that draw. Why not try to get an equal structure? Why not try to get a symmetrical structure? They did, yeah. I mean, rather than Bishop d6, Magnus had a bit of a think here, and he obviously did not like that way of playing. So he played the second most popular move, knight b d7. And in this position now we see Abasov's idea, and that is to play c4. And that avoids these ideas of bishop takes b1 and bishop b4 check, which we discussed before. And White, I like this move because when you're playing any opening, it's a mistake to try and be too rigid. So when you play the London system, you might want to play the first, 10 moves without thinking. And I think most players might just put the pawn there, right? They create their pyramid because that's what you're supposed to do. But c4 is a much more challenging move because it hits the center. This bishop, the downside of Black's play is it leaves some of the light squares weak. So White can attack that with the queen. And here, Magnus plays a move which kind of shocked me a little bit, Tanya. This position has been seen a fair few times before. And Magnus now, as far as I can tell, plays a new idea here. Previous to this, Black has nearly always gone c6 or bishop e7. Magnus takes on c4. And the reason this surprised me, Tanya, is that you give away your center as Black, and you are sort of unbalancing the position. We get to the current position. White simply takes back and develops the bishop. Magnus now plays bishop d6. The idea you pointed out, Tanya, rather than allowing exchanges, this very key move in the London system, the knight comes into that beautiful square. Without this move, the London system would not be as effective. And now Magnus aims for more exchanges with knight e4. And this is a unique position, again, as far as I can tell. It hasn't been seen before. And a position where Black is just trying to swap off, I feel, a lot of pieces and get closer to the draw, which will make him progress to the next round. But the time as well, Tanya, look, Magnus has taken a lot of time, right, to get to this position. Yeah, so it was a London system. I hear a lot of people saying, boo, but the London system can be fun. First played in tournament in London in 1922. So over 100 years ago, 101 years ago is where the opening got its name from. And here White played f3, which is another quite sensible idea because this does try to build up a center eventually with the move e4. Magnus's idea is to make exchanges, and he does. He only needs a draw, so he exchanges off a piece on d2. And now he forces another set of exchanges by playing f6. And this is a kind of move I'd be a little bit scared to play, Tanya, because I do weaken e6, but it exchanges more pieces. And there we go. More wood gets chopped off the board. And White's idea, e4 in the position. The bishop drops back to g6. And now there's an idea that Black wants to take the bishop, take that pawn. So White over defends the center with rook d1. And does Abasov have any winning chances here? I mean, I guess my first thoughts, Tanya, are he's got at least a bit of an unbalanced structure, but the danger is, and there's another piece getting exchanged. There's many exchanges here, right?
And we have a move by Magnus already. He retreats with that bishop to f7. So not only over defending the e6 pawn, but also fighting against any potential d5 ideas that...
Yeah, that check on b4 is something you've got to keep your eyes open for. So I assume White would castle in a position like this, keeping some pressure. And it's just the kind of thing where you could line up another rook and then try to break with d5. I mean, I feel Black is solid enough here. But this d5 at the right moment could come as a bit of a shock. And I'm wondering, if Magnus needed to not draw this game, I'm wondering if castle's queenside is an option, but I'm sure castling queenside is a move that Magnus doesn't want to play, just because it goes really to an intense fight. Then opposite side castling any result possible. I'm sure he'd rather castle kingside, so we could get something along this
Sammy?
line. Yeah.
Am I seeing things correctly? Have you
Has he-
seen the last move on the board?
I haven't. Let's go there. What's he done? Has he castle queenside? Please tell me he's castle queenside.
It's White's move after bishop to f7, and Abasov plays king to f2.
Wow, king to f2. Why put the king on f2? I mean, like, oh my words. I mean, did he? Is a mouse slipper? Why not just castle? Right? Very strange. I mean, what is the benefit of putting the king on f2 rather than castling? I mean, very strange move. Maybe it's genius-like, but.
Whoa, king f2 would not be on my radar. If you ask me to guess 5 moves in this position, Simon, e5 will come to mind, shah castle would come to mind, maybe the queen retreat would come to mind, but king to f2 just simply because you have the option to go short castle. You have the option to actually develop your rook at the same time. The only universe in which king f2 kind of makes sense is if you're preempting a trade of queens. On the long side with the c line open, short castle would seem like the natural approach. Magnus has first attacked White's bishop, but I think it could be it, that if Magnus does go short castle, it gives Abasov the chance, which is exactly what he needs, to create something in the position along with the h-pawn marching down.
Yeah, I like it. I think as White, you want to keep your bishop on this diagonal, so b3 is the right square. E6 is slightly weak, and you just want to keep that pressure along the diagonal. And as you mentioned, the idea of rook c1 and suddenly c7 is on pre. Is in the air.
Counter ideas of a5, I was going to say, but yeah, maybe a5 is an option here because bishop a4 can be met by c6. Down the board, creating his own play against White's king. Queen c5 is coming in with a check. We will get to the live position, but let's do an action replay and see how we actually got there.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Loads of stuff has happened. So we're going to go through it quite quickly. Now, e5 was one idea, but queen e3 keeping the tension was the other idea. And this next move is really brave, I think. Magnus castle queenside. I was thinking, it's a move you might want to avoid just because of the match scenario. A draw is good enough, but Magnus shows little fear. And now rook d2, just trying to use the other rook getting in. Magnus does the same. They both put their rooks into the center of the board. They've got to think of a plan now. The bishop gets out of the way, maybe to get ready for the pawns to fly forwards. And c5. What a move, Tanya.
Nice.
I mean, opening up the king, though. Yeah, it's really, really a brave move, c5. White continues by pushing in the center. And we have an exchange there. The king finds a safer square. a3, maybe hinting at b4. Blockading that pawn in the middle. Also, White probably wishes his king was on g1 there because he has to waste time to defend that one. And rook e7, it seems like Magnus's pieces are finding some good squares. Always a good move, pushing the h-pawn. And look at this, h4. Here it comes. Trying to get in on this h-file. And now Magnus takes on c5 check. White has to go for the ending. Do we get an ending? We do. We get an exchange on d4. Rook c7 on the board. Tanya, does White have any chances to equal the match here? He's got to win. He has the d-pawn. He's got to try to make that a queen, but it's a long way from queening.
And I see that Abasov has played a move. He goes a4, so no more b5, at least for the time being.
Tanya, we could even have a look just how we get there briefly, but I'm with you, Tanya. I think now it is definitely impossible for White to win. So after a4, what did Magnus play? What he played actually bishop e8. He finds the target, he attacks the target. And now bishop b3, one of the only ways to defend that one. And this allows Black's rook to come in. And the more exchanges that are made, the easier the position comes. And this was really clever, Tanya, because without the bishop being on f7, you don't have to worry about the d6 tactic, so you can play king c7. And when the king gets there, only Black will be better. So rook e3 played, bishop g6, and now g5. White trying to find a way in. But Magnus's idea, exchange more pieces off. And he does that very shortly with an exchange of rooks, king e3, a5, clamping down, another star move there, Tanya, making sure that that pawn remains on the light square where it has to be defended by a piece, and also giving ideas of b5, bishop takes b5 and a4. And now king d4, king d6, f4, and there's no way Magnus will lose this position. Do you think he will even try to win this position with black? Because he did this the other day, Tanya. I think he did it against Ivanchuk, right? He only needed a draw with Ivanchuk in the second game. Ivanchuk offered him a draw. Magnus turned down the draw and went on to win the ending because he was so confident. And there's no way in a million years black could ever lose this position now. I mean, you've always got b5, swapping things off. Maybe he can't win it either. I don't know, but he could try. He's gone bishop h5 here. Yeah. I mean, maybe if white does nothing here, he's just got to avoid falling into something like bishop d1. If white does nothing, I don't know if Magnus can really progress this position too much. The thing I thought he could try to play is b5 then a4, but that might not be enough. So as long as I keep my bishop controlling d1, let's just... It's not easy though, because I could get in a zugzwang position. Let's say you go bishop... Okay, it's king e4.
We've got moves, king e4, so he wants to come in with king to f5. And you can give a check from g6. You could go bishop g4. Basically, all you need to do is control that f5 square and not allow black this activity. I won't be surprised if we see bishop g6.
Will Magnus try to win, though? I mean, if he doesn't go bishop g6, if he goes bishop...
And he hasn't.
He hasn't.
He hasn't.
Oh,
he's gone for the other one, bishop g4.
Wow.
And these concepts of zugzwangs are so prevalent in these bishops of same color complex positions, especially when you've got weaknesses that are fixed on the square of your own bishop. In this case, the d5 and the a4 weakness. What black wants to somehow do is combine threats with his own bishop on d5 and a4. As you pointed out, a square for black would be b3 to be able to do that, for example. And if you can do that for white, to keep both these pawns defended is impossible. So Magnus with bishop g4 kind of hinting at ambition here of perhaps wanting more than a draw. He might be going for the win.
It's something that could arise. Now we have one more move. Abasov playing bishop c2. He's got to keep his king here. He's got to stop Magnus's bishop creeping into the position. But now the king does come out to c5. And
Abasov goes back with the bishop to b3. So king d6 would be a repetition. Yeah. And what Abasov wants is, if Magnus does come forward with the king to b4, trying to get ambitious, then suddenly he might get chances with the d pawn at the right moment. And I'm looking at some crazy lines like king b4, d6, king b3, and does f5 win for white there?
Maybe even going to regret that idea, because why not take the draw? Why not save some energy? And we had an ending like this where he's moved his king in. Has he made any progress? So he's now trying to get his bishop to attack the light squared pawn. And they dance around a little bit here. There's really no way Magnus should lose. And he's taking a little bit of risks, allowing that d pawn to move at some stage. Okay,
that's
changes his mind.
Anytime you go forward with d6, black's king just comes back and the d6 pawn would fall. So white needs to time that push really well as at the same time.
Yeah, and I suppose the bishop is always covering that pawn from coming too far, so it is quite safe. b6 played. Again, Magnus could have gone for a draw with king c4 there, but he loves fighting. Bishop c2, comes back here, bishop d3, king b4, and his king is marching all the way down, Tanya, but now it's changing its mind again. And he's coming back. And here, white plays d6. I mean, this is the kind of move. If I was Magnus, I would have taken the draw by now, because I wouldn't have enough confidence to allow that pawn to get to d6. I would have the draw. I would go for my beer. I'd have one beer just to, calm down a little bit, get ready for the playoffs. And I wouldn't be sitting here playing this one on, because, that's still a pawn, right? If I get my bishop, for example, to b5, it's not going to happen. But if I do, I can win this. This was okay. So one move was losing, king b4, and it is a tempting move. But he found the only move king c4. Now, if he can get his king to c5, he's safe. But bishop g4, it's still very hard to work this position out for black. I mean, Magnus
And
is
Abasov
playing the
plays
only
it
moves.
instantly. Abasov plays it
Oh.
instantly and gets
Yeah.
awarded with a double exclamation. That's a brilliancy on the board. You have to admire his play. He's created his chances. He's managed to ask questions, made Magnus go into a position where Magnus needs to be precise, in a position that it felt impossible to do that. And Magnus getting a bit shifty now.
I would be getting a bit shifty
Oof.
here. He's turned down a draw on a couple of occasions, and now he's only got one move that saves a draw. Every move, except for, and we'll come to that move in a second, will lose for Magnus, because we've got to show this tactic again. This is a brilliant move. If you take the bishop, f5, discombobulating, a blocker. There's no way you can stop Derek the d-pawn queening. Derek will become a queen on d8 there.
He's reaching out. He's not going. Is he going for the bishop? Because bishop c6 is the only move. It is on the board. Magnus Carlsen finds it.
Wow, he is the best player in the world for a reason, Tanya, and he has found the only possibility. And this check, I mean, again, finding this move's quite hard, Tanya, because another tempting move, I'd say, is to take on a4, right? This would be quite tempting. And you know why this move loses, Tanya? And again, I'm using the computer here to help me because I can't work this out quick enough. Bishop e6 check first, forcing the king to a bad square, and then I queen. So Magnus has found it. Bishop c6 check, forcing the white king to a bad square. And then he can take on a4 and apparently give his bishop up for the pawn. But even this, Tanya, without incredible calculation. Okay, let's keep looking. So this has occurred. Bishop takes e4, bishop d7, bishop takes b5 on the board. Magnus has kind of worked this out, hasn't he? Only Magnus would have worked this out. Not many other players in the world. And what have they done? What have they done? Did they agree to resolve?
They haven't done anything. They've just get new score sheets. Everything's fine. The game continues. Simon b5 on the board. So Magnus still playing precisely. But it's crazy. We were talking about how black's a pawn at some point was the wrong color with his...
Really along the ways we thought it would, or very similar, with Magnus using his pawns to distract the bishop away. And the white king ended up coming backwards. The check. But now the black king just goes towards the pawn. As we said before, gluing itself to the pawn. And there it is, glued to the pawn. And it keeps on the pawn. We had this position on the analysis board pretty much with b3 being played. I think we had this exact position. And the problem here is the bishop has to remain on that pawn with any winning chances, but then the king remains on that pawn. As soon as the bishop moves away, well, of course, there's many ways to draw here. King takes pawn is enough, but they get a draw in... Well, they play on a little bit here, but they get a draw, king versus king at the end there. So it was a tough fight, but I think both players have got quite a lot to be proud of there, Tanya. I mean, Magnus is in the final, and Abasov is in the candidates, right?